IVM.
Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashdin, Doctor, your habit coach, and today we have a very special guest with us. And it's a very interesting journey that he's been on, something similar to what I went through as well. So it was an instant connect. So which is why I said I must have you on the Habit Coach podcast. And there is so much to learn from this story because many of us are actually trapped in a cycle that we're going to see. And there's so many learnings to how to get out of it. So without further ado, let's welcome Chaitanya Puri to the Habit Coach podcast. He's a lawyer turned life coach. All right. So that's an interesting journey, Chaitanya. Like, how did you manage to even start thinking about that?
Hi, Ashton. Fantastic introduction. It makes it sound way cooler than probably what it is. And I think, firstly, let me also say that the message that you put across in your platforms is remarkable. And
Thank you.
just as an audience, I think it's truly a lot. We all need to that kind of stuff. So coming through you have this really positive vibe going on. So I think it's really easy for people to relate to you and connect with you. So hats off and kudos to you for doing what you do.
Yay, thank you.
So your question was, how did it really come to that? It wasn't a luxury that really brought. It was more of necessity. It was more of me not wanting to settle for what was, and you wanted to go for what could be. So it was that resistance within me which kind of started pushing me a little more, which I fought in the beginning, to be honest, which is something that a lot of us do because we want to make sense of the reality that we are living. We want to justify that. There's a slight angle of denial to that also. But when you remove shackles of, you know what, let's just take a breather and is this what I'm really truly, capable of doing? It's when reality, a different kind of reality hits. And that's what happened to me over time, to a point where I just realized that no, I need to be authentic to myself. That's when the interest started developing, and from interest, a passion came out, and from that passion, now there is a purpose to which I'm aligned through this journey.
Lovely. So you said that there was a right. So let's first dive into that aspect. So you were a lawyer. Now, why did you become a lawyer?
I enjoyed what I thought
arguing.
Well, that's a lot of Indian families we feel, oh, this child is great at arguing, put him. But I don't think like arguing was not really my strong suit, but logic was something that I like logical reasoning that did come a little so that's something that interested me, and I had zero lawyers in my family, so the exposure to what law really was also minimal. So my understanding of what law is was pretty much what a layman think of law. If you see Bollywood, there is the kind of misleading idea of what a what a lawyer does.
Tariq and all of that.
Yeah, it's dirty how they show it, but and there was obviously this sort of respect that comes with the profession, with orthodox, and it's academically inclined, so you get that bent of mind to read, to learn. And so those are the things that interested me in the beginning. But somewhere I realized that this is not my space. This is not jumping out of bed to do this. I am somewhere dragging feet, hoping for interesting challenges to come up. And I said, okay, I've just been practicing for 8 years now. Multiply this by, and this is not an age where you retire. You can practice, and this is not a profession where you retire. So multiply this by 10. How happy am I by the end of that multiplication? And no, I am not, because if I'm also multiplying the pain and the sacrifice for that many years. And I said, who am I owing this debt to? For whom am I willing to go for this, go through the suffering? And I said, no, I mean, me being miserable is me miserable for my family, for people around me. I am not going to be of anyone. And one of the things that really resonates with me is to be value to people. I felt, okay, That's perhaps the reason why I jumped into this field, but there may be another place from which I can really align this value, and it should seem a direct, alignment to who I am as a person. So then life coaching happened to me.
Lovely. But I want to stick on to the lawyer thing for just a few more minutes because,
Absolutely.
it's so interesting. You studied for so many years, right?
Mm.
Right? How many years? 5 years?
5 years and then 1 year masters in law as well.
Geez, okay, so 6 years of studying. In 6 years, the penny didn't drop. Matlab, this is not something that I want to do for the rest of my life. Like,
No,
I know
no,
people are stuck in this situation as well. But
for sure, for sure.
so why didn't
I,
it strike you that,
I think everybody has their own journey. Everybody
hmm,
has their own cycle of realization.
hmm,
Today I speak to some law students who by the third year are like, I don't want to do law.
right,
And some of them are good enough to then drop out at the third year, but some of them, a lot of them start thinking, let me just become a lawyer because that's not a life you have as a profession. You become a lawyer, you do anything else. And I tell them, yeah, do that because just studying law kind of teaches you. I mean, it's a professional degree, right? It
yeah,
teaches you so much more. So why it took me that much was perhaps because I don't think I was that level of awareness about who I am, what I want, is this my purpose? I did not ask myself those questions. I
correct,
thought you were supposed to get onto it and just get on with it.
yeah,
And some love you are those who love work. And I used to feel that, it's like going to the gym. You're not supposed to enjoy it, but after that you're supposed to enjoy. Then it came to me that what is the after that I'm waiting for?
hmm,
It's been a considerable time now. What is that utopia that I'm hoping for in the horizon?
hmm,
And if I'm not living it, is it really worth it? I'm
correct,
chasing a mirage here. Those questions started seeping into my mind
hmm,
over time to a point where I couldn't shelve them back again. And I think the mundane routine of press, everyday matters, preparing the brief, preparing matters for your seniors,
hmm,
research, judgments, this, that, it was quick that one didn't really get the time to pause and reflect,
yeah,
because you didn't really have weekends. You're leaving office at 10:30, 11, going back, basically sleeping after, preparing for the next day again, getting up early. That cycle was maddening, and it really took me to it took me a hard stop to kind of sit and say, boss, where am I? Who am I anymore? What am I doing?
hmm,
It took me a lot of awareness and deliberate awareness to come to that point. So the sooner somebody's seeing that, the penny can drop accordingly.
interesting.
Mm.
And you
Mm.
said something so interesting in passing, which was that law teaches you a style of thinking. And that is so important. Right? Whenever we choose our
Yeah.
careers or whenever we choose our
Mm.
education, it is not necessarily the tools that
Mm.
we will use for the rest of our life, but it's the thinking that we take out. There are so
Yeah.
many people who are stuck in engineering, not enjoying the engineering process,
Mm.
wondering how they'll become engineers, what they'll do after becoming engineers. I get messages almost every day with
Mm.
regards to this, which is why, I
Mm.
picked up the engineers as a thought. But what
Sure.
engineering does and can teach you is a style of thinking. And I think that is something that
Sure.
you pull out and then use in other parts of your life, and which is important. Similarly, I think for law as well, there are so many things you must have taken
Mm.
from there as a style of thinking into what you're doing now,
Mm.
right?
Absolutely. My grandfather used to say that whatever you learn will never go
Mm.
to waste.
Yes.
And as a child, I would think, but I studied science, but then I took commerce, and that was my limited understanding at that time. And now I
Mm.
realize that it's so true. Provided you're more aware of how to bring that into your current usage. Now, what law taught me was, and I'm speaking as a lawyer because I don't have an engineering background, is that there is always much more to know.
Mm.
So that's a humility that law instills in you. There is this unlimited knowledge, and you read something and then there are 50,000 more things that you can read. So
Mm.
that thirst for knowing more, it just became insatiable
Lovely.
effectively. And that's something. And I wasn't much of an avid reader before I turned into a lawyer, but after that it basically got drilled into me as a daily habit. You didn't have an option. So you learned speed reading, you learned speed typing, you learned to think analytically, you learn to think in panic situations, and those are life skills.
Yes.
And you learned how to manage clients, and all those are clients who are actually at the stake of losing things on a daily basis, them literally going to jail or losing massive amounts of money,
Right.
or broken relationships with their family. So that's genuine pressure. It's not something maybe off. So to handle that kind of pressure immediately at the age of 23 onwards, it's throwing you into the deep end with genuine ramifications at the end of the day. And that kind of absorption of that pressure, stress, doing it calmly, doing it with respect, also being respectful to a court, handling court craft, learning how to manage with other colleagues, learning diplomacy, all those things just are things that I can't put a value to.
Yeah.
I would not have come into this profession. I wouldn't have done it any other way, honestly. Honestly, like it's I think the perfect way for me to have moved into this.
Lovely. Superb.
Mm.
And you've been doing this and you were practicing it for 8 years. And then slowly, there was this feeling, okay, there must be more, there must be more, there must be more that was starting. Right? How did it
Mm.
start? And take us through that journey on, what are the steps that followed to where you are right now, which is a life coach, and that's completely different from a lawyer.
Mm. Say, I'll give you a more relatable answer for many of your viewers. Suppose say somebody wants to be an actor. Now, when you think of an actor, there are a few names that pop into your head as the epitome of success as an actor. You look at the Khans, you look at Akshay Kumar, those Amitabh Bachchan, and you feel that that is the success, that's gold plating that one wants to aspire to. When you go into that stream, you realize, there are many other successful people. These are more public faces.
Yeah.
But over time, you start realizing the definition of success for a lot of people is different. It's not something that comes to you maybe on your first day. It's something that you discover over time, right? And that comes through a process of trial and error. Same for me. I would see these superstars arguing, those who would argue the whole day in courts, charge crores of rupees every day in the Supreme Court, and in the evening give sound bites on news channels. I would be like, oh, that's the level one aspires to be. As I got a little closer in proximity to those people, I realized that that's not something that I would be ideally happy being at that position. And I said, but why? I mean, I questioned myself, why would that not something, isn't that what every lawyer would want? It started from a place of, why is it that I don't aspire? Now it became clear that that finish line that I was running to wasn't the race that I want to run. Suddenly, you're not running at that pace now. You're like, why am I running then? And you're like, let's just get off the track a second and let's think straight. Because the momentum, the inertia made us run. And now there is this promised land that all lawyers are running to. Suddenly you're like, boss, hold on. I'm a lawyer because I studied law. Am I a lawyer at heart anymore? And perhaps not. So what am I? Self-discovery led me to reading a lot, having a lot of talks with my friends and family, my close friends and family. And I realized that this was I wouldn't say a problem, but this was a very common mindset about people somewhere submitting to the process, the thought that, it's fine, you don't have to love it. And I didn't want to settle for that. I said, why the hell not? I want to love what I'm doing. Why, for who am I doing this? I mean, I want to love what I'm doing. Why is it that a micro percentage of people get to do that? And what am I in absence of to not do that? So I put my mind to it that, boss, let's get there where I need to, I get to do everything that I can do to live a life of truth, purpose, and something that I find true joy in.
But how did you get to life coaching from that? Like, where did that money come from?
there was so my wife and I, we used to have a lot of discussions. So my wife's also a lawyer. So
Hmm.
what we would do as a ritual would be, every when she would get free from her work and I would get free from my work, we would every day go for a drive and a coffee. That was a ritual for us.
Hmm.
And those drives basically meant having a lot of conversations,
Hmm.
important conversations. We would always have detailed, important conversation, meaningful conversations. So one of many of those conversations used to be around, if not a lawyer, what would you be? If not a lawyer, what would you? For me, the answer always came down to, I would love to think, I would love to be an inspiration, I would love to guide, but I couldn't put my finger on what. I just
Hmm.
felt that those are the things that I wanted to bridge for people. I would say consultant, because I thought that's the closest. And then I got exposed to this space. I'm like, this is tailored for me, my personality. And I read more about it, and that's how, you spark an interest, you develop it a little more, and then you realize, oh, this is not for me. You pick up another interest, it and while you're like, interesting. You go a little deeper, you're like, bang on.
Hmm.
That's what happened with me for life coaching.
Very nice. Can I
And
pause one
yeah,
second right there? Because it's
please.
very interesting what you just said, which was that you have to get into that trial and error mode before you start thinking about what
Mm,
your other options are. Very often people just say whatever first comes to mind, do it. Or
mm,
people don't try, they don't experiment,
mm,
they don't
mm,
search. And
mm,
full trial and error mode is so important at this stage, because understand that you've been doing something and there's so much inertia to move there,
mm,
because
mm.
all of life has been set up like that. Correct?
Absolutely.
So now to move to
Absolutely.
something else that better be far better, and you
Mm,
have to then start experimenting, finding different things that excite you, then
mm.
start honing in on something. So that was a very important point,
Absolutely.
which is why I wanted to pause and just make a note of it.
No, good. I mean, there is this concept of delayed gratification.
Yes.
That so I don't know if it's I've not studied general education systems everywhere in the world, but it seems to me that the average Indian education system kind of drills this in a child's mind that every year there needs to be a certain level of improvement. If you fail to reach there, you've lost out on that year, kind of a feeling. So
Hmm.
that kind of carries with us even in our profession. We feel, but pace I've already earned, where does that go? That's lost now. If I step away from this and do it, I'm losing out on what I did. And I have to start building, I have to start running, so my peers will go there. Somebody I know, he's started doing this. You run in a rat race because you're looking at yourself as a rat.
Hmm.
Obviously, then that's the frame of mind you're looking at yourself. Those are the lens with which you're seeing your reality. So if we just pause for a moment and say, okay, hold on, I don't need to run this race. I don't want to win this race.
Hmm.
Why am I putting so much effort into a race that I don't want to win?
Hmm.
The gold medal that you get at the end of that race is not of value to me,
Hmm.
right? I want to run the other race. So I probably run 10 meters of some race, 30 meters of some, to figure out, yeah, this is the race and these are the kind of people I want to run with.
Hmm.
That will take trial and error.
Hmm.
And the concept of delayed gratification here is, you invest, not
Hmm.
waste, you invest that time in trial and error for you to perhaps find your purpose, which is way more meaningful. And at the end will probably help save you like 5 or 10 years of, you know, reach perhaps a fulfillment that you
Hmm.
may not have reached with your other this thing,
Hmm.
uh, typical profession. So that concept of delayed gratification is something that I think should be a part of our Indian curriculum, for children to understand the concept of everything doesn't have to be sudden, everything doesn't have to be immediate. You invest and you build a muscle, you build a stamina, and then you reap the benefits over a compounded period of effort.
Yeah.
So
In
trial
fact,
and
delayed
error is
gratification.
extremely important.
Sorry. I was saying, in fact, delayed gratification is a very important part of entrepreneurship, because in entrepreneurship, you never get a salary immediately, right? Whatever work you put
Sure,
in
yeah.
comes in after a few years, after a few months, many, many
Mm,
years, maybe. right? So the whole idea of delayed
Yeah.
gratification is very, very important, and it's definitely a
Mm.
habit, a mindset habit
Mm.
to have, so that you can always say, all right, I'm investing, like rightly said, not wasting, and let's see what
Mm.
happens
Mm.
in the end. No, there's something that's
Yeah.
going to come to me in the end. Beautiful. Now, on
Sure.
this journey, obviously, there's one part which was you suddenly discovered that you like this whole area of life coaching. Now, from there
Mm.
to actually quitting job, moving towards it, telling family,
Mm.
learning more, studying, exams,
Mm.
how did all that
Mm.
happen? Like, what was the hardest part for you?
Mm. Mm. The hardest, I think, was before any of these steps was really the internal discussion
Hmm,
about, okay, I'm doing this. Really,
hmm.
do you want to do this? Yeah, man, let's do this. You know what? That was, I think, where I because that's where the Parkinson's law about you having already invested a lot on something,
Hmm.
and now even if you don't enjoy it, or even if you know that there is a foreseeable failure ahead, you still do it because you're like, there is so much investment behind it. That's what a lot of us kind of run through our lives in general. So I was at that place where I was applying that law to myself and saying that, so there is a considerable investment that's gone into me studying law. There is an, I mean, people know I'm a lawyer. This is what I do. I have put in blood, sweat, and tears into building whatever I've built till now, working my butt off, and my family's compromised on me not being around physically because I've been at other work engagements. For what? Now to me, he say, you know what, guys? And also the transition into a field was, which is, it's not like suddenly I said I want to be a doctor. People are like, oh, another field which is understood. It's like, ये तो life coach है, ये just ये तो ज्ञान देगा. No, it's so much more. This is a space based on positive psychology. There is so much neuroscience. There's so much linguistics. There's so much, uh, I mean, there's so much more to it than talking. And it's not like I'm giving suggestions to ABC. It's really eliciting and co-creating an environment with the client
Hmm,
discussion. But the
hmm.
difficult part was really the before I any of the tangible steps was really the internal conversation, because once I was sure of this is my true path, it was just about telling my family that this is what I'm doing,
Hmm,
and they were all extremely supportive. Their main concern was, have you thought out of how to go ahead?
hmm.
And I said, yeah, I have, but that also helped, conversing with also helped me think more clearly about, this maybe a little later, let's do this. So then it became more of a family project on how to get me there.
Lovely. So you
So
had your support
yeah,
system in place for this. So
100%,
so so
100%.
so important. And
Absolutely.
it's so
Absolutely.
interesting, Chaitanya, when you learn about career changes, right? There's this age that starts between 30 and 35 when people make their
Mm.
first big career change. And then
Mm.
there's another age that happens around 60, 65, where they make their second big career change. So you typically go through three
Mm.
kinds of careers in your life nowadays.
Mm.
So interesting because um, it is almost becoming a norm, saying that you're going to try and find something
Mm.
else, because you as a person are also growing
Mm.
through this entire process. You're not a person that you were in college.
Sure.
You're
Yeah.
definitely not the person now. And 60 from
Absolutely.
and like 30 years from now, you're not going to be the same person in any case. So as a result, you start
Mm.
seeing these changes. And the thing I want to tell everyone is that embrace it when it happens. For example,
Yeah.
this happened for me as well when I was starting my fitness businesses. It started because I felt that
Mm.
this was a higher purpose for me to get to, and we'll discuss purpose a bit. Um, my family business was into market research, consumer understanding. I loved it. It's not that I did not like that.
Yeah.
It was that I could be of service
Mm.
elsewhere. And like you said,
Mm.
trial and error. We started a business for fitness through playing games, so it was all about exercise and it was all about masti and it was fun about
Mm.
that. And I
Mm.
realized that the
Mm.
exercise part maybe not something that I want to be part of. It maybe not be an
Sure.
industry that I want to be. And hence, through like you said, trial and error, we reached at this habit coaching business. And it's so interesting to
Right.
understand that these kind of journey, and it is damn scary to start something new, but it is so rewarding to get
Yeah.
into it as well. Start saying,
Yeah.
this is fun. Like I'll give you another example. Maybe this is something that you faced as well. You typically meet people at a party or a networking event, and you're like, "What do you do?" And earlier on, I didn't know. It didn't feel like natural for me to tell people what I did. Now, when I meet people for the
Yeah.
first time, it's out of my mouth, and I'm excited about it, and that excitement is infectious to the other person as well. So it's so interesting to see
Absolutely.
how when you make a change towards that, the way that your life approach, the way that feel about it approaches changes, and the way that society looks at you completely changes.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think most importantly, your biochemistry changes. You start walking differently. You start thinking differently. Your As a lawyer, I was almost perpetually in a certain level of anxiety, which I thought was how a human is operate. And then now I realize, my God, I was just running to a heart attack at some point. I'm like, for bloody what? What was the I didn't, fortunately, that came to me, and I did not want to be a martyr in that cause. I don't want to be.
Yeah,
I want to be my best self. That for me, I realized wasn't coming. That, so figure out what gets you there. So I
lovely.
think, yeah, I mean, thank God for us that you came into this space, and obviously you've become an inspiration for thousands of people, and that's what it's all about. If you follow your path, you will inspire others. And if everybody starts following the path, the world will literally become a happier place. Literally. You being happier today, so Ashdin being happier in his home, will ensure that the family is happier.
Lovely.
If every family has two people doing the same thing, rather than bringing in frustrations from the day, every house just becomes happier. Every family becomes functional. Everything becomes from the place of clarity or simplicity, what you're giving, what's the value you're getting. Things just become happier. And yes, your earning may come 2 years later, three, but then is that the only transaction? You're learning life skills, you're learning how to interact, you're being happy. Isn't that something that eventually one kind of, despite all the money, is yearning to collect? So if you're
Correct.
getting that in the bargain in the beginning, then you're just reaping bits of of a prize that is elusive to so many people, no matter how rich they are.
So nicely
And if in
said.
that bargain you end up making money, great.
Mm.
Sorry.
Celebrations. And Chaitanya said path, right? Finding your path. Now, a few tips for people on how to find their path.
Sure. I mean, I think firstly, it has to come from the first step: listen to your thoughts, observe what you're telling yourself. There is almost we put a pan over our internal thinking, and we postpone that for later, almost like a luxury. On a holiday, I'll think about it. No, that every day. Speak to yourself, see where you are, assess where you are, be a leader to your own thoughts. And how a leader operates is you get feedback from the person, from the people you're trying to lead. So get feedback from your awareness about where you are, what you want to do. Is this what's bringing you happiness? If not this, then what? Have that communication, develop that skill and the muscle to have that communication. Ask questions. Right? Now, it just takes, like, if I just ask anybody on the street that you doing what you're doing right now for the next 15 years, 20 years, how happy are you in the next 20 years? You the person go, and that moment of thinking is what everybody needs to start doing every day. All you have to do is ask yourself questions. So the minute you start asking yourself, your awareness starts getting built up. Once the awareness built up, it starts becoming a conversation. Your awareness will then be like, hey man, do you want to try this? but then you have to ignite that awareness first. And when that awareness starts speaking with you, and you start being open to what that awareness is suggesting, because there is nobody else more than your awareness who knows you better. Not your parents, your partner, it is you, because that's you, right? That's your inner being. That's not a condition of your environment. That is your soul, or the whatever higher power you want to feel. It's you. It's truly you. So if your truest you is telling you, I want to do this, why would you rob yourself from that? And once you start exploring that path of awareness and giving into that awareness with whatever it takes, there'll be sacrifices, growth, learning, uh, failures on the way. Once you start developing the need to giving into that awareness, which is an empowering awareness, you will start finding your passion and your purpose. That is the beacon which leads you to that place. There is no scientific formula. It's not you take a pill, nothing else is happening. It is really how you connect with yourself to find out what works for you. I can't tell you this, it worked for me, but everybody has their own journey. But that journey starts, having that connection with yourself first. So awareness is a step that I think highly, highly underrated. Uh,
Lovely.
which is why I think a profession like life coaching is something that kind of introduces a lot of people to that skill.
So it starts off by being aware of your thoughts, then having that conversation with yourself of understanding what is your awareness trying to tell you, right? Are you in a state of joy, happiness, enjoying what you're doing? And guys, listen, it's not that everyone is not enjoying what they're doing. Okay, you might actually be enjoying what you're doing. At which point of time you don't need to quit your job or any of that. That's not what we're trying to say. But the idea is figure out what your mind or your actual body or your soul or your being is trying to tell you. And like he said, is so important because that path is critical. Now, how do you find that path? Awareness. Where you are and where you need to go is basically all you have to start thinking about. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Lovely.
I think you hit it on the head. And perhaps one more thing is that the resistance for a lot of us to stay onto a track, it's almost like we link consistency in a field to the success in that field. No, I think we're looking at it a little, wrong. So look at it from this perspective, that your source of happiness in what you do can change every years, 3 years, 5 years. That if it's something that's coming to you, maybe being an engineer was the first building block for you to find your purpose. Right now, you've cleared that level. Start speaking about what is it that's coming to you now. Maybe now you want to do something. Maybe you want to do something completely different. Work on that. 5 years later, you want to do something completely different. After 20 years, the kind of knowledge, experience, database of network that you would have created for yourself would be so much richer than a person who would have just headed that path of just doing that same one thing. I think that you owe it to yourself to explore that latter option.
Lovely. Absolutely. And you said so nicely, you owe it to yourself to explore that extra option. So, quickly, can you tell people what is life coaching and what have you learned as soon as you started, as soon as you became a life coach? And it's been about a year that you've been doing this, correct?
Yeah,
for a year. For a year. So you're fairly new to this, which is why I'm eager to understand, like, what have you learned? Because you'll be looking at everything with fresh eyes, right?
Yeah. Honestly, I learn pretty much every day, and that's, I think, I love learning. So that's something that really excites me, because every client I meet, every new session with that same client is also learning for me. And the kind of clients that I try and engage with are those with whom I feel I'm also learning, and it's not just one way. It's something that I feel that, okay, with this person, I'll also learn. And that comes from a place of me really wanting to grow in life and just know more, get more knowledge, more value, being a good circle of people who want to keep growing, who want to keep expanding, uh, not with frivolity in mind, just knowing more, just knowing more and operating from a place of growth mindset. So for me, every day is a new learning. So what I've learned is, I keep realizing that it's a very weird dichotomy. Everyone's different, right? Everyone has their own individuality, but yet we're all so similar. It everyone has a different condition about they'll have obviously different parents, different background, different kind of way of operation every day in their daily lives, everything, different cities, but it boils down to a few core issues about doubt, self-esteem, assertiveness, self-respect. Very core issues, very central to a human being. And for some people, some value matters more, for some the value matters more, but roughly it's in the same ballpark. So you understand that, my God, this person from this tangent came back here, and that person from that tangent came back here. If they were to meet, and if they were to have a heart to heart, they realize, so it's like everybody's so similar. So I think if we realize that, then I think there'll be probably a stronger rapport between people. There'll be more trust between people that we're all similar. We're all very, very same. And then it's all about connection. It's all about love. It's about giving. That's where the true joy is. I feel happiest after a good session. I feel happiest because all the client does is like, it's a great session, Chaitanya. Thank you. And I'm like, yes. And it's not an ego high. It's just that you feel that I trained for hours. I studied for hours. I developed a skill that helped move this person from point A to point B in their life. There was a tangible shift in how the person's thinking. Over a few months, you see that person change. I can't describe how I can quantify that feeling, but it's a certain kind of warmth that it just instills more drive, makes me more hungry to do this.
Lovely.
So that's
it's so interesting because the understanding the humanness in a person, correct? Lovely. And understanding how people are actually at the very root of it, very, very similar. You work with a CEO, you work with a homemaker. At the root of it, both of them have very similar insecurities. They've managed to deal in different ways. And it's so interesting to understand people at that human level. Lovely. Chaitanya, has been fascinating talking to you. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, they can reach out to my social media channels. I am very quick to respond to personal messages within a day and a half. I'll personally respond. So it is. I don't follow a longer route of write an email, even though some people do that. But I kind of push a lot of people to send me a direct message. All my profiles are completely public. Send me a direct message. My phone number is also on all my profiles. Reach out,
you didn't tell us your profile.
Let's have a chat, and
So
I'm on Insta. Okay, so they can just type in my name on Insta, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. I'm on
what? Chaitanya Puri, the full word.
So there is C Puri on Insta, but normally when you type the name, it comes across. So C Puri on Insta, _ Chaitanya Puri on Twitter, Chaitanya Puri on Facebook. There's a page called Chaitanya. And on LinkedIn, it's just Chaitanya Puri. So all four different.
Super. Thank you so much, Chaitanya.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am Ashdin Doc on Twitter and Instagram. You can find lots more information on my website, awesome180.com, or check out different content on my YouTube channel called AWESOME180. That's Awesome180.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So it's been a great week on the network, as it almost always is. Let me give you a couple of highlights that you should definitely check out. Chiki Sarkar was on This Round's on Me with Gauri Devi Dayal. Great conversation. Think you will really enjoy that. Shlok Ramachandran of our new show, Millennial Athlete, who guested on one of our older shows, Football Shirtball. He's a big football fan in addition to being a professional athlete. So I think it's a really interesting connection. And they had a great conversation about football just generally. Nankari, our new show about Indian food, hosted by Sadaf and Archit, talk about laddus this week and basically, how awesome they are. It's Diwali week, and I think that's an apt conversation for them to have. On the Wire Talks podcast, Siddharth Bhatia has a great conversation with Dylan Mohan Gray about his work on Bad Boy Billionaire, specifically around the Vijay Mallya episode. Definitely check out the conversation if you want to know more about that. And finally, let me recommend the Edges and Sledges Cricket podcast this week. They take a look back at the IPL 2020. They go over the final, Delhi versus Mumbai, and how that played out. And they also create their dream IPL 2020 fantasy team. Do check that out. I think you'll enjoy that as well. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Whether you're an established sports person or a budding one, or simply a sports enthusiast, join us, Tanvi and Shlok.
We are two passionate pro badminton players talking policy, mindset and everything sport.
So tune in to the Millennial Athlete every Monday.
Only on the IVM Podcast Network.
Trust us, it's gonna be lit.